welcome back. Welcome back to my channel, Hood Parenting. I'm your host, Yasheka Foster. For those of you who are still not really understanding what hood parenting is, if this is your first time or if this is your first time visiting my channel, hood parenting is my way of talking about my experiences in life through my 50 years of living, how I've used all the things that make me who I am, which is my education, my experiences, and my hood gut instinct is what I call it, right? I call it my triad, right? My education, my experiences, and my hood gut instincts. So for me, being from the hood means that I use all of my senses to understand perspective, to get to the truth of something. In other words, I don't rely on one thing. And this particular channel is dedicated to things that I wish that my parents had told me, or things that I wish I had told my children, simply because I look at life like there are some things that we may have forgotten, some things that we may have needed. And here's the thing, there's no one size fit all. There's no, if you had got this, that this would have happened. No, none of that. But if you can find one thing from the information that I put out or the videos that I put out, and is something that will encourage you in life, then I'm here for it. Because I can recall times in my life where someone had told me one thing, and because they told me that one thing, it changed the trajectory of my life, right? And along this path, I will share these stories. But today, the topic is give yourself grace. And this is FTP for the parents video. So what you guys will realize is that a lot of times when I make videos, I am literally coming from a place of inspiration, like intuitively, my videos come out. So don't say anything about my get up, because I was on my way to the gym and something said I needed to make this video before I left, right? So I just put this little jacket on top of my gym wear so I won't be so exposed, all right? But today's video is parents, give yourself grace, and this is for the parents. Here's why I say this. So here's a little story. My mother got pregnant with me at 15, right? Now, if you ask her this story, she'll tell you she got pregnant with me at 16. Okay, but let's do the math here. I was born March of 1973. My mother was born October of 1956, which means that when I was born, my mother was 16 years old and about 6 months, give or take, right? About 16 years and 6 months. So if you back up 9 months from when I was born, because my mother said that she carried me full term. I wasn't early, I wasn't late. I was like Jesus. I was right on time, okay? So my mother told me she carried me the full 9 months. So if you back up 9 months from March of 73, that would take you to around July of 72, which means that my mother hadn't turned 16 until that October of 72, okay? Her story was she wasn't allowed to date until she was 16. So there's no way that she got pregnant with me at 15. And I was like, you know what? I believe my mother played on the fact that her parents' education level wasn't that high. I believe she played on that because, honey, if you carry me 9 months and I was born March of 73 and you back up 9 months from that, that's July of 72. You didn't turn 16 until October 72. So you mean you was pregnant with me at 15, honey. Okay, but that's not my story to tell. I'm just telling you how I got here, okay? So why do I tell this story about my mother? My mother had me at 16. By the time I was born, she was 16. My father was 20. My mother didn't know anything, okay? And I often tell people that my mother and I was raised together. Like we grew up together, because what is it that she was going to teach me at 16? 16, a child is still trying to figure out life, right? They're just at that age where they're trying to figure out who they are. They still don't know. They don't even begin to understand who they are. They have an idea of the person that they want to be. They're still figuring out their goals in life, or, well, maybe I want to be a doctor, or maybe I want to play sports. Maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to be a housewife. Maybe I want to do this. Like, maybe I want to travel. Like, you have no idea at 16, any of this. You have no answers to any complex decisions that you're going to have to make in life. None. Now, every now and then you might find somebody that's smart, like that come through the generations, and they, you know, at a young age, they realize that they're a child protege or something like that, or they're highly intelligent or smart, whatever. We're not talking about those people. Those people are like unicorns. We're talking about regular folks, regular people, right? Regular people who, at the end of the day, they don't know what they're going to be at the age of 16. So that's how it was with my mother. She gave birth to me at 16 without even knowing who she was. My father was 20. He didn't know no better neither. So I think about all the things that, some of the things that I had been through as a young girl. My mother just trying to just make sure that we eat, make sure that she doesn't lose custody of us, make sure that she can put a roof over our head. And for some parents, those things get overwhelming, no matter what age you are. And I could imagine it being that way for a 18-year-old, because by this time my mother had my brother at 18, and when she had my brother is when she moved out on her own. And so and I think she worked at Burger King or something like that at that time, you know, and you figure this was in the 70s, so she wasn't making no more than about $2-3 an hour. Okay. But I think about how she was with me as a parent, and how there was a lot of things that I felt that she needed to teach me or should have taught me, but I understood early that she didn't have the resources or the capabilities to teach me anything. Why? Because she didn't know. Her parents didn't even have a high school diploma, right? I think my grandparents went to like the 8th grade or the 7th grade or something like that, right? That's as far as they went to school. My mother graduated from high school after but she went back and graduated after my brother and I were born. But for the most part, though, you know, that was when she was what, 21, maybe 22. But even still, that was as far as she went, which was high school. So what was she going to teach me? So then I think about my own self when I had my first child at 22. I had my first child at 22, and I was married. I had been married for about 4 years, but I still didn't know anything. Just because I was 22, I was 6 years older than my mother was. I still didn't know much, right? I mean, I was in the military, yes. So I had that experience. But what I'm saying to you is there was still a lot that I was still learning about who I was, right, as a person. So the message is, parents, we have to give ourselves grace, right? We have to give ourselves grace, because even if like we feel like there was something that we should have done differently, we did the best we knew how. Because my thing is, I didn't abuse my children. Now, I don't believe in sparing the rod. I don't believe in that. Okay. Now, I know that I could never be on the Dr. Phil show. I could never be on the Dr. Phil show because Dr. Phil don't believe in all that. Okay. Now, I didn't believe in that. I didn't believe in sparing the rod. I don't believe in sparing the rod because, listen, if you get it, that's because you done 10 things at this point, and I'm tired. I'm at my breaking point. Now I need to put you back in check and reset you, right? Because you did 10 things, okay? And then now that you're reset, we'll start all over and count to 10. Now, when you get to 10 more things, it's going to start all over again. It's a rinse and repeat, okay? Now, I could never be on Dr. Phil. Now, but with that being said, there was never abuse. There was never any type of physical, verbal, emotional, whatever, no type of abuse, right? But I know that my son will tell you that he feels like there was some things that could have happened differently, right? I remember one time my son told me that he felt like he had got too many butt whoopings. And so I asked him, I said, well, can you count your butt whoopings? Like, in other words, can you use your hands, just your hands to count? He said, yeah, I probably got about 9 or 10 butt whoopings that I can remember. My comment, because I am who I am, I'm Yasheka Foster, and I am the founder of Hood Parenting. And my comment to him was, well, if you can count them, you didn't get enough of them.
And my comment to him was, well, if you can count them, you didn't get enough of them.
Yeah, if you can still count them, you didn't get enough of them. Because I can recall as a parent that you've done more than 10 things. I can recall that. So if you telling me that you could recall 10 whoopings and you can count them on your fingers, and you know that it's about that many, right? It's only about that many that you could recall, right? We ain't talking about a little smack on the hand. We talking about what you could recall. And I could recall as a parent, you doing more than 10 things. Then you did all right, son. You did all right. But but then there was a part of me that said, well, dang, did I do too much? You know, could I have broken his spirit moving forward? Right? Could I have, you know, maybe, you know, just made him angry at a certain point? I don't know. I don't know the answers to those questions. All I know is that I did the best that I could with what I had. That's all I know. And I'm not making excuses, because he could feel some kind of way, and I'm on board for him feeling that kind of way. And I acknowledge how he feels, right? I acknowledge it. It doesn't take away from how he feels. All I can do is speak my truth. And my truth is simple. I only knew what I knew. So I have to give myself grace, because in my mind, right, because of what I've been taught, these are things that's supposed to happen. Like discipline's supposed to happen, right? There's a lot, because that's all I knew. So as parents, we have to give ourselves grace, right? But just like I also knew, right, because with everything that's bad, we need to make sure that we acknowledge. But I also knew that I had to work hard to have money for him to go to college. And I did that. I also knew that I had to purchase a home for him so that he could always have a place to call home. I did that when he was 27. When I was 27, he was 5. I purchased my first home, right? I made sure that he got, you know, to be well-rounded as a child. We went on vacations. He played sports throughout all his childhood years. You know, as a family, we had Sunday dinners together. You know, we went to church. We went, you know, visit family, because I was in the military. So it was his stepfather. He spent time with his father, because again, his father and I divorced when he was I think 5 or 6. We divorced 6, maybe 7. His father and I divorced, somewhere up in there. So he still spent time with his father. He had 3 parents, 2 dads and two dads and a mom. And the reason why I bring him up is because the way that I raised him was different than the way that I raised my now 20-year-old, right? When I had my first son, I was 22. When I had my second son, I was 30. My relationship with my second husband was a little bit more stable than my relationship with my first husband. So the way that my children were raised were different. I poured more into my oldest son. Like I taught him more, right? I made sure he knew things that I didn't necessarily teach my second child, right? And so I look at my second son like, dude, like I cheated you. Like there's so many things that I didn't tell you, or so many things that I didn't talk to you about. And I'm trying to remember, and hence hood parenting. Things that I needed to tell him, things that I should have told him, things that I may have told my first son that I may not remember to tell my second son or my daughter, right? But what I do know is that as parents, we have to give ourselves grace, because we're doing the best we can. As long as we keep them alive, we keep them out of jail, we keep them from, we get them to graduation, things like that. Like we're doing the best we can. So we have to give ourselves grace. Could there have been some things that I could have done differently raising him? Yeah, absolutely. Just like my mother could have did some things raising me, but I don't hold no ill will against her, because for me to be who I am, I needed her to be who she was or who she is. Right. And so as parents, we have to give ourselves grace, because we're doing the best we can. And if we can tick off those milestones, like graduations, and give them a family vacation, and make sure they're well-rounded with, this and that, whatever the things that are important in your life, that's all we can do, right? Teach them important morals, and teach them certain, and things that are morally important to you, teach them about family, teach them about honoring commitments, teach them about just things that are important to you. For everybody, that looks different. For some families, it might just be about, family. For some people, it might be about money and family. For others, it might be about the religion. It might be about family and religion. Like like every family is different. You have to decide what's important in your family, and that's what you pour into. Because let me tell you something. What I've learned is that it's hard to try to be 100 in all areas in your life. It's just not going to happen. So the best way that I used to say about my life is that I'm not the best at anything, but I try my best at everything. So when I was a wife and a mother, at the same time, I'm a student and a soldier. I'm also a daughter, because I'm seeing about my mother. I'm helping out my brother, so I'm a sister. Like I'm doing all these things. And at some point, I already knew that everything wasn't going to get 100. I couldn't. There's no way. And then still leave space for Yasheka, right? But I tried my best, right? I tried my best. And it's the same thing what it is with raising children, right? You try your best. So for the parents, right? Give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. If you know you've done your best, listen, and you still have an opportunity to talk about those things or work through some issues, right, with your children or whoever, do so, right? Do so, right? Do so. My father passed away before I could establish a relationship with him. When he tried to apologize to me, I was 18. He died when I was 20. So we never got that opportunity to really, really, really establish a relationship because I was upset with him. Because in my mind, you coming to me at 18 to apologize to me, I'm grown now. Why you wait till now? Why you wait to, in my mind, the hard part is done because it was in my mind because I'm thinking I'm grown now. You can't tell me nothing, right? I didn't know that, life was life and life was going to life. I didn't know that, shoot, when you get 18, that ain't even the beginning of adulthood, honey. I didn't know all that. And so there's going to be every moment in my life that I've needed my father. But in my mind at 18, you're too late. So I shut that down, right? I was a child. I didn't know no better. And right. But he was the adult. He was the parent. He should have made sure to establish that relationship. So what I'm telling you as parents is that if you have time, and there's some things that you want to clear up or some things that you feel like is maybe stopping your children from being their better selves, or things that you wish that you had have taught them or showed them or let them experience, whatever you can do, right? Do it. Is it going to always turn out the way you want it? Probably not. But you have to give yourself grace and say, you know what? I did my part, because people are still going to be people. Your children are still going to be your children, meaning that just because you created them, you gave birth to them, you had them, like mother, father, whatever, you created them, they're not robots. They're still going to have their own mind. They're still going to do whatever they want to do. Just because you put these things in them, you think they're going to walk this road. No, that's not how life is, because they're their own people. There's a such thing called nature and nurture, right? We nurture them to have the things that we think they should have or be the person that we think they should be. But then a beautiful thing called nature kicks in. In other words, all that makes them who they are, because it's not just your generation that makes them who they are. They pull things from 5, 6, 7 generations ago, right? They might have grandmama's blue eyes. All right. You ain't had a blue-eyed grandmama in 6 generations. Then all of a sudden you have a child with blue eyes, right? So you don't know where this stuff comes from, right? So when it comes to a child, they're pulling from all people. So that's why nature has in my opinion, has a bigger effect than nurture, because no matter what you steer a child to be, they're going to be who they are, right? Because, hey, we want them to be this way. Now, I know what the Bible says. I know the Bible says you're still a child. Listen, it's still there, but sometimes they still got to find their way. They're still got to find their way. And when they find their way, those rooted things that's in them, they'll come back to it. If it's part of who they are, they will come back to what was nurtured in them versus what nature taught them or what nature instilled in them. Make sense? All right. So I've said a lot. And like I always say, these videos are always from a place of me just really being intuitive about what I feel needs to be said, right? Yeah. So if this is your first time here, be sure to like and subscribe and share this video with somebody, even if it's not for you right now. You never know, because what I know about life is that life sometimes, is tricky, right? If you look back, there's always maps, right? There's this like a big old thing. You can see how one event helped you with another issue that's later on in life. So even if these videos don't resonate with you today, tomorrow, next month, next year, you might remember it, and you might remember something that you learned here. So whether it's you, but if not, share it with a friend. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. You're watching Hood Parenting with your host, Yasheka Foster. Bye.